minutes till more people have come in. So we'll start at 6:05. Hey guys, we're just going to give it another 2 minutes and we'll start at 5 past. Amir, it looks like you have a lot of support here tonight. I'm looking at the chat.
Oh, let me have a look. Armando. It's a great designer, Armando. Hi, Marion. Hi, Marion. Hi, everyone. Trust me, I didn't pay them, by the way.
Okay, we've got a good crowd. We've got 40 so far. Looking good. I'll just wait 1 more minute and then we'll get going. Just checking, what are you looking at my screen? Are you looking at event outline? Yeah, good stuff. Right, might as well get this show on the road. So first of all, I'm recording this session so that we can share it afterwards with anyone that couldn't attend tonight. Welcome to the second meetup for UX design in software as a service. Our topic tonight is creating customer-centric products. Just to note, as I mentioned, this session is recorded. And a big thank you for joining the group and attending our event this evening. I also have to thank Tim Campbell, who kind of came to my rescue. My NBN isn't working, or my Wi-Fi, so I'm hotspotting off my phone. So if anything goes wrong, Tim's my co-host tonight. He's going to jump in and save me. So thank you, Tim. So let me introduce myself. My name is Clodagh Lynch and I'll be hosting this evening. I work as Head of User Experience at Whisper, which is a SaaS product. And the reason I started this group is so that like-minded people from different industries can get together and discuss issues we're having and solutions and techniques or frameworks that have been used to help improve SaaS products. A quick word to our sponsors this evening, which is also Whisper, where I work. They've kindly offered to sponsor us, and in future we can meet in the Whisper offices. They're giving us their Zoom account tonight. We also have a fantastic brewery sponsoring us for future events in the office called Fury and Sun. So I'm looking forward to having beers with you guys and seeing you all in the office in person, hopefully in the next 8 weeks. Whisper has also provided a little token for each of our guest speakers tonight, which I'll post out to those guys afterwards. So let's get down to business. We're here because we have 2 amazing speakers presenting to us. The format for each of them is as follows. They'll be presenting their talk, and then afterwards we'll do a 10-minute Q&A session. Because of the large numbers of attendees tonight, I've automatically muted everyone, and once the speakers are speaking, I'll unmute them. Please write any of your questions down and thoughts into the Slido app. So I've already shared the link of the Slido app in the chat part of this, if you want to go and have a look. If you click on that link, you can just pencil in or type in your questions as you go along, and we'll ask these questions to the speakers after they've presented. Let me see. Okay, I think that's all the housekeeping done. Let me introduce our first speaker of the evening, coming to us live from Ireland. We've got Niamh O'Hora. Niamh has almost 20 years of experience working in digital, software and education roles. Niamh has a unique blend of UX strategy, UI design, UX research, facilitation and training skills. She is UX design lead at property servicing SaaS specialists Aspen Grove Solutions based in Kerry, Ireland. She specializes in driving design-led innovation projects, user testing, and applying design thinking practices to build better user experiences for customers. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Niamh. I'll just have to unmute you. Let's see. Oh yeah, you're unmuted. Niamh, do you want me to unshare, stop sharing?
Thanks, Clodagh. Can you hear me okay there?
I can indeed, yes.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in today. I'm really excited about being here. Can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
That is great. Yeah, so hello from County Kerry in Ireland. I don't think I'll be able to join your next meetup in the Whisper office, I'm afraid, Clodagh. It's a little bit far away from me, but it's really great that there's so many online meetups and events these days. And I appreciate everyone's time. It's actually hard to get to everything. There's so many good things happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about validating your product and why it's important and what happens maybe when you don't. And I hope you get something from it. And I've aimed it at a pretty broad audience, so apologies if there's nothing new for you here. And do ask questions after. I'd be delighted to help. So maybe I might start off with a little bit about myself. My name's Niamh O'Hora. And over the past couple of months, I've really gotten to appreciate my environment working at home. So this is my back garden, and these work buddies that I get to see every day. They're hopping around now, even this morning, and it's this morning here, so sorry if I'm a little bit sleepy. I'm a UX designer, and I obviously work in product. My background is in fine art, though. I kind of got into UX design from first fine art, and then e-learning design, and then web design, and then I veered into UX and product design as well. And I've also lectured, so I lectured for about 8 years on a degree program, a digital media degree program. And I'm really interested in building awareness of design innovation and product design, and then obviously building products that customers want and they will use. I'm a UX design lead at Aspen Grove Solutions. So it's a small company, and we're based in Tralee in County Kerry. You know, in Ireland, Dublin is a big tech hub, so it's maybe a little bit harder for tech companies in regional areas and more rural areas. So that's kind of the context that I'm working in. And Clodagh mentioned there that I work on products that help manage property portfolios. So One of our customers is one of the top 10 banks in the US. And unfortunately in the US, after 45 days, if you're not paying your mortgage, it automatically goes into default. And then banks are mandated by law to care for all these properties and maintain them and do inspections. And our software helps kind of manage that process. It provides a workflow, and then it provides insights and an overview of these portfolios and how they're performing. And for me, it's great because I'm working kind of in a startup context, even within that small company. So there's a big gap in that kind of market, in that banks and mortgage servicers maybe aren't engaging with borrowers over the full life of their mortgage. So we want to have a conversation with borrowers, and we want to know when they're thinking about selling their home, or when they're thinking about refinancing, or even when they're thinking about changing insurance providers. And that's kind of the product that I'm working on to try and get into that kind of market. And COVID-19 has shifted that a little bit, in that in the States, you know, if you've been impacted not negatively financially by COVID, you can apply for a 6-month pause on your mortgage payments. And that's led to pretty much a tsunami of these applications. And banks are struggling to keep on track of those applications and the workflow, and then what happens after that 6 months, and whether people are going to have to refinance or modify their loan. So we've shifted very quickly in response to COVID, and now we've got another top 10 US bank onboarding for this borrower engagement, this new product that I'm working on. So that's very much kind of where I'm coming from. I suppose this company has been a very traditional IT company, where maybe instructions come from the CEO down, but in the team that I'm working on, it's very much kind of fitting into a more empowered product team context. And I'm sure a lot of you have read Marty Kagan's Inspired, and if you haven't, I would really, really, really recommend it. And you know, he's coming from the point of, it doesn't matter how good your team is, if you're not working on something worthwhile and valuable, then your time is being wasted. And it's all about that validation and building the right thing. And he reckons that a product has to be 4 things in order to be successful. So valuable, you know, something that customers will choose to use, that it solves a problem. Usable, which is where a lot of maybe designers would have a lot of experience in usability testing, and something that's easy to figure out, easy to use. And then feasible, which is maybe more in the tech end, so is the architecture stack flexible. And then viable, so I guess how it fits with stakeholder requirements, how the product maybe aligns to organizational goals, how it's marketed, the ROI and stuff like that. So those 4 things are crucial for product success. And the book is really interesting if you're a designer then as well, because he really outlines the role of a product designer, that there's a product manager that's overseeing everything in relation to the product, but he describes the designer as a partner in that process, that's sitting beside the product manager, that's contributing and has a lot to contribute to the validation stage right at the start. Is it valuable? Is it something our customers will love? And something that solves a problem for them. So really great book. And why is customer-focused design so important? Because anything that we can do that changes a customer's behavior will ultimately drive product growth. And it's going to result in company growth then as well. And we have so much to contribute in an agile context, in a lean context, about reducing waste and helping our product team focus on the right thing and not waste time on the wrong thing. And that's really what I'm here to kind of show maybe a couple of examples of. So, you know, someone that really got it right in 2008 was Spotify. They had a very clear business proposition. Their business value was well defined. There was obviously piracy at the time. There was declining revenue for the music industry, and there was a delegitimization of music at the time, and their business case was very clear, but they got it right for the customer too. You know, it was so hard to manage all these different file formats over different devices. You know, I had like an iPhone at the time. I was working off a PC. Then I had an MP3 player. I was getting music from all kinds of sources. And Spotify just made it so easy to manage this. And then Jay-Z and his buddies came along a few years later with Tidal, and their business case was also very clear that the revenue would go back to the music, the artist. But their customer focus maybe was a little bit sketchier, like they hadn't quite defined what problem this was solving for a customer. I mean, they were offering like better sound quality and access to restricted materials, but maybe this didn't cater for the masses, you know. And in this case, maybe something like jobs to be done to help figure out what problem you're solving or what job your product is performing for a customer might have helped a little bit in Tidal's case. Even Google can get it wrong. So in 2013, they launched Google Glass. It was $1,500 US dollars for a pair. So it was a big investment. And it was pitched as, you know, a must-have tech product that you can't leave home without, but it kind of turned out to be the opposite. You know, the glasses could take films anywhere, and most people were a little bit freaked out by this. They ended up getting barred in bars and movie theaters and restaurants. And even internally in Google, there was a debate in the engineering team. Like, some people were saying this is a must-have fashion device, and then some people were saying, no, this is a functional product that helps you get a job done. But post-launch, a lot of the feedback was that people just felt a little bit silly wearing them, and then the privacy debate as well. And I guess post-launch, it really opened up a conversation about privacy standards. And maybe it was a product that was not the right time to launch. But you would think that an increased focus on something like diary studies and field studies maybe would have helped with the validation pre-launch. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's a little bit old, and this is, I suppose it links in with the usable part. So maybe with Tidal and Google Glass, it's all about, is it valuable for the customers? But this is the BlackBerry Z10. And I guess here the question is it usable? And if it's not, there are problems. And the Z10, after it was launched, really contributed to a big hit in BlackBerry's per sales, leading to a lot of problems in the company. And we know that usability problems can be figured out really early on in the development cycle. And you know, with something like a usability question, a very small sample size might suffice. So, you know, Jakob Nielsen would argue that you can figure out with as little as 5 users usability problems. He says, like, you don't need 20 people out of 30 to make the same mistake again and again and again to see that there's a pattern. You can do it with a smaller sample size. I am going to show you about a minute and a half from the Mashable team who reviewed the BlackBerry Z10 post-launch. And these are some of the Mashable staff who are trying to figure out the interface.
It's very different from other smartphones of today. And we're going to go to see if anyone can actually figure this out on the first try with no instruction. Okay, try unlocking the phone.
How the hell do I turn it on? Oh, B. Arrows. Okay. Okay, it's unlocked. Yeah, I think it's unlocked.
Yeah, I'm trying to swipe up. Okay. I think I unlocked it like an Android phone.
Unlock the phone. Got it? Not unlocked.
Is this part of this making it really difficult? Got it.
Now, try to find your email.
Find my email. My email or your email?
Find the email.
Any email. I'm assuming this is email. BlackBerry Hub. It's not. I found Gmail, Hotmail. Pete, you still have a Hotmail account?
Can you go back to the home screen?
I don't know how to go back to the home screen.
Okay, so I think
it's very
I think we can kind of get a sense of the usability problems that people face there with the BlackBerry Z10, and you would think that early usability testing might have helped that product a little bit more. So next, maybe I'm going to show you some examples of how companies have validated, and maybe even projects that I've worked on where we've tried to validate earlier on. And you know, I work in a very small company. You know, my role as a UX and product designer incorporates the UX research. It incorporates the discovery phases where, you know, we run sprints and stuff like that. It incorporates the UI design. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, you know. We don't have like a dedicated UX researcher to help us out with this. And we're focused a lot on the kind of qualitative, open-ended people's responses to what we're working on, and maybe less so of the quantitative, indirect, data-driven, especially in the startup context that I work on, where you know, we're only onboarding a client now, so we don't have a lot of quantitative data to look at. We don't have customers using the product, so hopefully that's coming next. And then there's more advanced techniques, I guess, as well. Like Dr. Susan Weinschenk says that really 90% of your decision making is happening at a subconscious level. So even as soon as you speak, you're applying so many mental models and thought processes that speech is not necessarily an accurate way to research, that you've processed so much by the time you're talking. You know, this kind of thought would kind of link in with maybe focus groups and how they're not maybe an accurate way to really gauge an emotional response. So things like galvanic skin response, which measures your sweat to indicate your emotional response, and things like facial response analysis, you know, that's targeting more the subconscious emotional response to something. Here's some more practical tools that might be a little bit more feasible for us, and I'd love to hear if people are involved in some of those more advanced techniques. It would be great afterwards if to share if you are. But you know, a lot of us would be familiar with customer journey mapping, but I think with the Airbnb example here, it's a great example of identifying value through customer journey maps. And customer journey maps are all about documenting the steps or stages that your customers go through in the entire life cycle of your product. So what's happening before and what's happening after. And it's a great way to collate research and share with the team as well. And really it means that it results in the ability to maybe give your teams problems to work at a stage in the process rather than a to-do list of features to build. And Airbnb, through Rebecca Sinclair, who was head of UX at the time, they used customer journey mapping in a project known as the Snow White Initiative. So they were inspired by Walt Disney's use of storyboarding. And they mapped the entire customer journey. And she describes a kind of a eureka moment. So this was, you know, a process that took a couple of months. They were really collating research. They were getting different teams involved to map this journey. And I guess they had a eureka moment where, you know, they figured out that the product wasn't the booking engine, the Airbnb platform. It was the entire trip. And out of that customer journey mapping came Airbnb experiences. So they used that technique to identify new value opportunities. And with this project, then they got a Pixar artist to convert their storyboards into high-res artwork, and they were able to share it throughout the organization as well. So everyone could kind of get on board and understand their customers and their journey. I'm sure a lot of you have run design sprints, so a 5-day process for solving problems, you know, pioneered by Jake Nakba at Google, and it really uses design thinking and combines it with behavioral science to get results fast and to validate an idea after only 5 days and to get people together on the same page. You know, it's not suitable for everything, but I think it's great at the discovery phase of a project to help kind of define the goal and the vision and what success looks like and how you're going to measure success, and just getting everyone on board and coming up with ideas, and then a structured way to decide on what's the best value and what's the riskiest place to start and what do we want to test first. And the successes are great. So I have an example here, Savioke. They build interaction robots. And the example that they used in the design sprint was they were launching one of these robots in a hotel. And, you know, they got a team of people together, you know, engineering, marketing, sales, CEO, COO, finance as well. And they were worried. They picked a really risky thing to test. They were worried that their robot was still in prototype stage. They were worried about maybe people's reaction to the robot, that people might expect like C3PO or something, and that their little robot, their service robot, was very basic. So what they decided to try and test was trying to give it a little bit of personality. And for the prototype, they just stuck an iPad on the top of their initial engineering prototype. And on day 5, the team rented a room in a hotel, and then they recruited hotel customers who had no awareness that a robot was involved in their research, and they conducted experiments with them in another room in the hotel. And they got the test participants to ring down to reception and say that they'd forgotten a toothbrush. And of course, then, unbeknownst to the hotel stayer or the research participant, a little robot came up, they opened the door, and they saw this little robot delivering their toothbrush. And for every hotel participant, they were really, really happy. A big smile came on their face when they gave a little bit of feedback to the robot. So they gave it 5 stars or 4 stars or something, and the robot then did a little dance and played some music for them, and they could see this pattern emerging, that this was something that was really going to add value to the product. And then they learned from failures in that example as well. So they had built in like gamification even into the rudimentary prototype, and they ditched that from the product at this stage, at this very early stage. So the sprint is a great way to validate early on. I had spoken about kind of a product that I was working on to try and engage homeowners over the duration of their mortgage. So we've tried validation, a lot of different techniques with this, you know, customer interviews. You know, I work in Ireland, and the customers that we're designing for are in the States, and there's a lot of differences about managing a mortgage between Ireland and the States. I'm trying to understand that with customer interviews first, and, you know, customer journey mapping and prototyping and initial usability testing, but then these validation interviews then as well. And I'm just going to show you maybe about a minute of some of the clips from our validation interviews. So we were wondering, are we working on the right thing?
Oh my God, I love it.
Kind of original. I haven't really seen much like this before.
Yeah, it just seems like it provides, I mean, way more information than just my bank telling me when my next payment is due.
I think that's really cool, actually, just because, I mean, I'm motivated by getting discounts, so, and saving money. So if it's all in one place, that's cool.
But I like that. So I would be up here as often as possible taking surveys.
I'm a first-time homeowner. I have no idea what I should be doing when I should be doing it. So if somebody held my hand through that process, I would not mind it whatsoever.
I really like this. This is cool.
I think this is cool. This is giving me like a month by month thing of what I should be doing. I'm telling you, this is so cool. Yes, I love it. It's telling me every month what I should be doing to my house.
Oh, I like it.
So, you know, when I shared this with the product team, they were really encouraged that we were going in the right direction, and it really helped with identifying the strongest features of the product that we're working on. And then we were able to identify a really weak feature from these interviews as well. Oops. And sorry, you know, even something simple like mock-up testing. This is another project I worked on from an exercise provider, another client, and they were optimizing an existing product, and they had poor performance on a landing page. So they were sending out invites to employees to join a workplace health physio program. And they were concerned about the conversion from email to landing page to registration. So, you know, I was new to the team. I didn't have any insights into the product. So we ran a lightning decision jam over about an hour and a half just to get me up to speed and to identify the problem that we were addressing, and to identify the goals then, and to get other people to start coming up with ideas. And we voted on the strongest idea, or what the team thought was the strongest idea. And so over the space of 2 days, I was able to get going on something I had no insight into. So I mocked up the idea that we'd selected. I also mocked up a kind of a wild card idea that that the CEO had kind of picked out as their favorite. And then I just recruited 50 people in the States. Again, these customers would be based in the States, to just test the 2 mock-ups and compared it to the original landing page. And this was really helpful because even from the 50 people, only 4 out of those 50 thought that the idea that we prioritized in the lightning decision jam would encourage them to sign up. And the wild card outperformed. So about 60% of people said, yeah, this is actually the one that would encourage the most conversion. And I guess the next step in this process might be A/B testing to see how the solution actually works. And lastly then, so I recently did a global startup weekend, the COVID edition. And this is really a weekend of validation where you work in product teams on an innovative idea. And I worked with a lovely group of ladies, Suzanne, Helen, and Meg. And we focused on a product to help communities mourn during COVID-19 and celebrate the lives of people maybe that they had lost. The weekend really focuses around a lean canvas model, and it's a weekend of validation. Like my team members went and talked to people, ran surveys, interviews, and then I focused maybe on the UX and the customer journey. And I started with a persona who's based on my mum here, Mary. And you know, I don't need a lot of research for this persona because I've spent lots of time with my mum. She's in her 80s. In the period of COVID, helping her with technology and helping her use technology and helping her find funeral notices and helping her write messages of condolence on online sites, which has been really, really difficult for her. And this journey was with her in mind, because this demographic would really be a target audience, I guess, for this type of product. So I'm just going to run through some of the flow maybe with you. So say someone like my mom might receive a text message. That would be ideal for her. You know, she uses a phone, she doesn't have a computer. So maybe a text, and the text might come from her friend or someone she knows, encouraging her then to share a memory of someone who's passed away on this new website. And a lot of the time, my mum, she just doesn't know where to start. There's too much going on websites. She doesn't know where to start. So that this page is giving her options about where to start. And then she can go back and add other things as she goes. And she's just uploaded a photo there, and it's auto-saving because she makes a lot of mistakes. And then she can add text and stuff like that. And something that's really important for her is a big button saying, I'm finished, I'm done. And then a place for her to maybe view that memory afterwards as well. So lots of little things for maybe a more mature user of this product. And then, yeah, she loses stuff all the time. She never knows where to find anything. So just a reminder for her where she can find that message that she put up, and she can find the page that she's contributed to a memory for. And oh yeah, some resources. So a couple of things that I've mentioned today. The Inspired book by Marty Kagan, I would really, really recommend it. And this whole notion of continuous discovery and validation, Teresa Torres has some great resources and some free courses as well on her website, Product Talk. Susan Weinshank's 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People, and she has a great podcast, Human Tech, as well. Michael Margolis from Google Ventures has some really great resources for you getting started with UX research. And Miro has a really great resource for getting started with customer journey mapping as well. That's pretty much it. That brings me to the end of the talk. And please do get in touch with me. I run a small community then in Kerry, and we run online events as well, so you can connect there too. And thank you so much for your time today. I've really, really enjoyed it, and it's been great to connect. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. So thanks, guys.
Niamh, thank you so much for that. Yeah, there's a few questions that are after coming through, so I'll share the screen. Oh, can you stop sharing yours for 2 seconds?
Sure can. Just give me 1 sec.
No worries.
Great. And I'd love to hear other people's experiences as well of any of the things maybe that I've been talking about.
Okay, let's see. Share screen. Can you see that? Can you see the questions, Niamh?
Not at the moment.
Oh, what screen is sharing? Is it the, oh, sure.
For me, it's, oh, there we go.
Cool. So the first one there is, what are the top 3 lessons learned which provide high confidence that new products will be successful from customers and revenue growth perspective?
What I was actually, like, I could probably do with help with this, but the way we approached it in our company was we tied it to an OKR. So we just set a benchmark for running all these tests on maybe the product I was talking about, engaging with borrowers. So rather than what we asked ourselves was 2 questions: is it valuable and is it usable? And we just set a percentage and tied it to an OKR. So we said we want 90% of everyone we test with to agree that it's easy to use. So we repeated the questions over and over again, and we just used that benchmark as a lesson, I guess, and learned from that. And we also said we want 80% of everyone we test with to indicate that they would be interested in using this product. So I'd say maybe just having that consistency in all your testing. And they were the 2 things that we wanted to find out over and over and over again. So all of our questions were geared towards finding that out. And that's how we drove our confidence level. Just looking at whether we hit those. Is it easy to use? And as soon as someone says, I'm confused, I'm not sure about this, you know that it's a problem and you can't put it down in the 90% easy to use. So I would say for us, it was those 2 things. Is it valuable? Is it usable? The questions were all geared around that. And we said, we set a performance metric in all of our testing.
Fantastic.
I think that's about it.
Okay, the next one then from Ricardo. What platform or product did you use to set and record the usability tests?
So for the interviews, and actually I meant to say the video interviews are great for if you're engaging with stakeholders, if you're engaging in investment rounds, because they provide really powerful messages about how customers, this is a valid product. I meant to say that at the time. For the video interviews, we used lookback.io and usertesting.com to recruit. For just like uploading mock-ups, I used Usability Hub to recruit, and that has been working out very well actually, and it's really quick. So you could do it every week, you could do it every 2 weeks, and we've tried to build that into the designs, our actual product development sprint, our agile sprint. Then actually we've started to use Qualtrics now, and a different way of increasing the sample sizes. So, you know, test participants can record audio or video, and we've been increasing the sample size and trying to automate some of the analysis of their feedback. So we're trying to kind of shift a little bit and increase our sample sizes with our testing now. So they're the main kind of tools that we've been using to validate.
It's interesting you mentioned Usability Hub, because I'm not sure if Matt is actually here with us tonight. He's the founder of Usability Hub, and he's due to speak in a few weeks at this meetup again. So I'd say he was delighted with your mention tonight.
It's worked out very well. It's just very easy. You can it's affordable. It's like even on the having the structure of, say, in the example, like of the physio provider, you know, having some kind of framework for discovery, and then even after 2 days, like with that project, I could see one person has a very strong idea, someone else has a very strong idea, and rather than getting in the middle of trying to argue points with people, just put it out to an audience and bring the data back to the group. That's what, it really helps with that as well. And it absolutely, I mean, I think that maybe sometimes I take for granted, oh, people are going to understand this, and they don't. And you really see that with something quick like usability hub testing. It really brings that to the surface, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. There's one more question here. It was linked with the top question. It says, cannot believe 600 billion spent on research and development in 2018, yet 75% failed. What are the root causes? I think, was that for the BlackBerry?
I don't know. I'm like most contributors and experts bring it back to building products that aren't solving problems. You know, the start with the why, Simon Sinek. You know, the jobs to be done. You're working. You need to work on something that is solving a problem. And most people would argue that this is one of the biggest reasons why products fail. And then lots of other maybe organizational issues then as well. But working on the wrong thing and working on something that isn't needed is a huge contributor to product success and failure, I would say. Absolutely.
Yeah, fair enough. And there's one other comment there from Carlo. Niamh, you just listed a number of products and services for usability testing and recording, and they're wondering, could they print out that list somewhere, or could...
Yeah, I forward that to you. I'll type it up. I'll pop it in the chat.
That would be fantastic. I'll stop sharing my screen here. Niamh, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Very interesting.
Everyone, delighted, and thanks, Clodagh, for organising.
Not at all good. Okay, let's see. Next up, who do we have? Our second speaker of the evening is Amir Ansari. Amir is the Director of User Experience at Transpire, with over 21 years experience in the field of design, both as a practitioner and leader. Amir has worked across the private and public sectors, managing UX researchers and designers. He has decades of experience as a global citizen, designer, and design leader, and continues practicing those roles with humility and a friendly smile. He will be presenting to us this evening on avoiding digital product failure. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Amir. I just need to unmute you. Let's see, where is he?
Thank you, Clodagh.
No problem.
I do have a smile on my face, so that's hopefully consistent. I will try and share my screen. Desktop 2. Let's go with Chrome tab.
Great stuff.
Okay. Can you tell me if you can see the screen? Fantastic. Thumbs up. Brilliant. Well, thanks for your talk, Niamh. There's a lot of overlap with my talk, which is great, and hopefully my talk will answer some of the questions that were raised already. So how to avoid digital products failure. So one thing I was going to do, and I'll do this at the start of every talk, is just to pay thanks to the founders of our land. So I acknowledge that although we are scattered throughout the globe, we are all on traditional land. For some of us in Melbourne, Australia, we're on the lands of the Woi Wurrung and Boon Wurrung language groups of the Greater Southern, Central and Eastern Kulin nations. I pay respect to their elders, past, present, and importantly, their emerging leaders, as well as any other First Nation people present today in our talk. So, good introduction about myself. I'm the Director of User Experience at Transpire. I've got 21 years of experience in the design field. I started my career as an industrial designer, designing street furniture and playgrounds for children. And then very quickly fell into digital, even though then it wasn't called digital. And monitors were big, fat, and very thick, CRTs. So I'm showing my age now. Fell into design leadership very quickly, probably because people thought I was very empathetic and could understand and empathize with my team. And so I've spent the last probably 15 years, growing teams, growing capability, mentoring, and most recently over the past 6 to 7 years, growing design capability within engineering or tech-based organizations. I've worked across many sectors and across many devices, so hopefully I can show some credibility in my talk today. Transpire, very quickly, we're a technology consultancy based in Melbourne. Basically, our goal is to design digital products for our customers so that their customers have an amazing experience. And so we design with purpose, we produce with purpose, and we're a very value-based organization. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a story. So many of you have probably used this service. This logo is probably a tad old, but in case you don't know, Netflix was founded in 1997, but it was actually founded as a DVD rental business. So how it worked was you would order a DVD, you would wait for your snail mail to deliver your CD in a red packet. You'd watch the DVD, and whenever you finished with it, you put it back in the envelope, post it back, and then you can go and borrow your next DVD. So the business was very successful. So between its IPO in 2002 and 2011, the share price went from $1.21 to over $42. So that means that if you had invested just 10,000 measly dollars, it would be worth $4.2 million now. So some amazing, amazing growth. So you think the people who founded the organization would have some clout around running businesses. So something happened around 2011, and to some, it's known as probably one of the biggest stuff-ups in modern product history. So internet was becoming a thing, and so Netflix decided to jump in and create a streaming service. But the decision they made was that they would split the DVD service, the original DVD service with a huge customer base, give it another product name, call it Quickster, and have Netflix become the online service. So this is what the value proposition was. You have two websites. You have to have two different logins. You have your separate favorites. So if you have favorites in the video, you'd have to create the same favorites in the streaming service. You would bill separately. And most important of all, you would pay 60% more for the subscription of Quickster. The goal of Netflix was to move everybody to the streaming service. Well, I can tell you, it didn't do very well for their share price. So they basically lost 75% of the share value within 3 months, based on a decision that wasn't founded on much evidence. And I'll unpack that in a second. So they hadn't considered that some people still didn't have internet service or a good internet service to be able to stream. They've done all this work, creating favorites, creating accounts and things like that. And they're forced to do it all again. And it took Netflix 2 years to crawl back that share price. So I'm very happy to hear that someone put in the chat regarding the stats that I'm about to share with you. So yeah, they're not the only one who failed. In 2018, Fortune 500 companies spent $600 billion directly on R&D. And according to the likes of MIT, Harvard, Nielsen, and Michigan State, 75% of all products fail. So that's probably a stark reminder for us that innovation doesn't come easy. And, you know, when companies launch a new product, it's highly likely to fail. So this talk is about my experience over the years around some of the pitfalls, some of the common threads around why products fail. Some are design related, some are not. And I thought I'd share it with you today. So, assumptions, running a business based on assumptions. Second one is lack of customer centricity or focus. And third one is a poor business case. So let's get stuck into it. I'm just going to spend 30 seconds and I'm going to wait and I'm going to get you to look at this photo. Some of you may already know this picture, but if you don't, just spend 30 seconds and without typing anything anywhere, think of what you're looking at. So for some of you, you might be seeing an elderly lady, 2 eyes, slightly big nose, a mouth, and quite a pronounced chin. But for some of you, you might see a much younger female looking away. So eyelashes, nose, cheekbone, a chin, and an ear, and a neck with, you know, it's probably a neckband. So what's the purpose of this image? I guess the point is that, you know, our past experiences, you know, cause us to gravitate towards familiar internal and external cues. You know, we all have them, right? We call them biases, right? And our experiences shape who we think we are and the decisions we make. And often some of those decisions are based on very important things like such as building products or building businesses. So some dangerous biases that we know of are, you know, confirmation bias basically is falling in love with your own idea or opinion, or things like anchoring bias, which is attaching yourself to the first piece of information you see or relying too much on some pre-existing information. This is one of my favorite quotes, right? So your assumptions are your windows on the world. Scrub them off every once in a while or the light won't come through. It won't come in. So a lot of startups and a lot of even enterprises make decisions based on assumptions. And look, assumptions are dangerous, right? And we know why they're dangerous simply because when you assume, you'll make an ass out of you and me. And I thought what I could do is just share one case study from a client of ours from over 7-8 years ago, not at Transpire, at a previous company that I worked for. So this company is a skincare and hair care product manufacturer. So they produce creams and shampoos and conditioners, and they sell them through third-party merchandisers that they contract to then go and stack shelves on chemists and other retail stores. So hopefully you understand the business model. So they came to us and they gave us a very well-written brief, which is, you know, we want to engage our employees, customers, and all stakeholders to form brand advocacy through training and education to aid in the increase of sales. So basically they wanted to ensure that people were buying their products, right? Let's be honest, they wanted one of these. And they told us when we asked a couple of whys. Basically, they want a training platform. So their mission or goal was, you know what, we have these merchandisers that we hire part-time. They take boxes of our products, they go to third-party retailers, they stack them on the shelf, and then they piss off. And their sales staff come in the morning, go, "Ooh, new products on the shelf. We don't know anything about this." Customer comes and says, "Excuse me, you know, staff person, can you tell me about this product?" I go, "To be honest, I don't know anything about this." So they felt by creating a training platform, which could be accessed via a mobile phone. So as the staffs are roaming the stores, they can pull out the phone and learn a little bit about the product. Or during, you know, the lunch breaks or, you know, cigarette breaks, go into the back office, jump onto the computer, and again, consume some knowledge and product information so that they're equipped to go back onto the shop floor and be ready to sell those products to customers that come in. So, they were happy to, they were willing to put in the budget aside to spend $500,000 to $1 million with us at the time. And that's a fair bit of money to put towards something that's potentially based on some assumptions, right? So we asked them some very simple questions, and lo and behold, the answers we got were not very strong and didn't give us too much confidence. So we said, listen, give us a week. Let us just go and firm up, as opposed to disprove. Let's go and firm up your hypotheses. So what do? We went and I had my team go and do some mystery shopping, go and talk to some staff at the stores, and then also, look at how the stores are laid out and the back office is laid out. I kid you not, in the first day of our research, we found this. So not a single staff and the retailers that they sell their products through are allowed to have phones on them. Took us a day to basically halve part of the potentially value proposition around the mobile phone and staff. One day. We continued to do some research. By end of day 3, we learned that there is actually one computer at most. It's often in the store manager's office, and the store manager uses it to do reconciliation, bookkeeping, scheduling, and so forth. And they definitely do not give access to staff members to jump on, launch a training platform of some sort, learn about the products. So some really dangerous assumptions have been made and business cases put in to build a product that was never going to succeed. So how do we avoid some of these assumptions? Oh, someone's drawing something on my screen. I'm not sure what's going on, but that's okay. Show me the evidence. Okay, simple, clear as that. So a couple of things. Yeah, one of the things that we've done in the past is use what we call hypothesis-driven development. You can Google it, HDD. Basically, what it is it's a template where the words are written. We believe in bracket target market. Will in bracket do this action or use this solution for in bracket this reason, leading to a target outcome. So basically, helping to define a hypothesis. And then what we do is we then go and collect evidence, qualitative, quantitative research, okay, as opposed to basing it on some assumptions. And one of the other things that we do is what we call constructive confrontation, basically lots of whys. So when the client came to us to say, hey, we want to build brand advocacy, et cetera, well, why is that? Well, actually what we really need, because we need a training platform. Well, why do you need that? Well, because we've got these merchandisers that come on the store and they put the products on and they piss off. So we need a platform for them. Well, why is that? Well, because when they go, customers come and they've got nobody to talk to, et cetera, and really getting to the crux of what the problem is. And so I highly recommend it. Ask lots of whys to get to the root and of the cause of the problem. So assumptions. Lack of customer focus. And I'm probably talking to the converted here. You all probably appreciate and understand the importance of talking to your customers. A case study. So not a startup. One of the biggest tech companies in the world, Google, created this product called Allo. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. It was launched in September 2006. It was paused in 2018, April 2018. You think they would get it right? And their goal was to compete with the likes of Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Apple iMessage. So the goal wasn't to solve a customer problem, it was just to take market share, right? They had no real differentiator, just another good enough messaging app. Okay. So that's some really dangerous stuff that doesn't solve a customer problem. From a startup's perspective, one of the biggest mistakes that startups make is, as Niamh said, they build products that nobody wants. And typically they follow this model. Step 1, write business case. Step 2, create lengthy, fancy financial projections. You've got lots of made up numbers. Step 3, my favorite, execute plan. And that's it. And that's their startup. And that's the framework that they follow. And that's really dangerous, right? Reason is they're trying to solve internal problems or driving their decisions based on some anecdotes. They've got no customer context. These are some of the quotes that I've heard over the years from clients. You know, we speak to our customers, yeah, but by their customers, they don't mean the end users. What they mean is their managers, or the procurement, or the CFO, or the CEO. And they sell these SaaS products to the CEO and the CFO, who then roll it out to the organization. It's an absolute flop. Staff are angry and goes back up the chain. CFO and procurement go back to the SaaS company and go, your product sucks. I'm sure you've heard that before. Or this notion of, oh, we've been building software for 10 years, as if time stands still for 10 years and people's needs and requirements don't change over time. I should have told that to Kodak probably, right? Next one, you know, this is my favorite. You're the UX expert or designer. You should know what our users need. And I don't know what else to say to that, right? You're a user of one at best with not enough domain knowledge for this product. And this is a goodie, oldie but a goodie. Yeah, no point asking users what they want. They often don't know it themselves. This basically highlights people's ignorance or lack of understanding around human-centered design and the toolkit, which is don't go and ask customers and users what they want, observe to understand what they need. So how do we solve this notion of no customer centricity? So this is probably one of my favorite tools that I've been using for over 6 years, and it's actually not a design tool. It's the value proposition canvas. We've sort of inherited and taken it into our own toolkit as designers and design strategists. What I love about this product is it helps to define the problem solution fit. So for a product to be successful, it needs to be desirable, feasible and viable. We all know that. But it needs to also meet sort of the 3 levels of fit. A problem solution fit, which is step 1. Once it's done that, your product's out in the market. Product market fit, step 2. And the third one is the business model fit, right? To make sure it's viable. So what's great about this tool, and I highly recommend if you haven't used it to look into it, is it's basically a product or a business tool meets HCD tool all in one. So on the right-hand side, in effect, what you've got is a bit of an empathy map or a little persona. Here's your customer. What are the jobs to be done, as Niamh mentioned? Make sure you've got that based on research, not creative writing, right? This is the assumption you've gone and done your research. You know your customer, you know what they're trying to do. Then you define their pains and gains. Financial gains or pains, social, emotional, and everything in between. You sort of write them out. Then half your job's done. Then all you do on the left-hand side, you define the product or the service. Is it a training platform? Is it an app? Is it a service? Is it a robot that's in a hotel? And then the goal is to try and alleviate as many pains or create as many gains as possible. So for every one of the pain points, you're going to try and define a feature or functionality that relieves that pain. Or if it's a gain, like a social gain, maybe they want to have a elevated status in the community. Well, what are those features that are going to create those gains? And the idea is the more closely coupled your gains and gain creators and pain relievers are, the better your problem solution fit. Unfortunately, most of the time clients come to us or startups go, right, let's create the features and then shove those features down the customers' throats. So one great test is if you do the circle on the right-hand side, and I'm not sure why it's right to left where it is, then you go around your product team and you take those features that the CEO have said we must have in our product and go, oh, well, hey CEO, which gain is this creating or which pain is this alleviating? And most of the time, none, because it's just a fancy idea that his or her next door neighbor mentioned in a boardroom. And so what you can do is grab the go, oh, look, you know what, if it's okay with you, we'll just put it in the backlog, we deprioritize. And in reality, we know what it is when ideas go into the backlog, they'll never get built, but that's okay. So the goal is to try and create this problem solution fit. It's a great tool. I highly recommend you using it. And third chapter, poor business case. Now, I do apologize. This is typically a 40-minute talk. I'm trying to cramp it into about 20 minutes. But yeah, let's talk about business cases. So one of my favorite, phrases is the IKEA effect. I don't know if you've heard of the IKEA effect, but basically it's the notion that we love things more when we've made it. or more scientifically, it's an increase in valuation of self-made products, right? If we've made it, we're more likely to love it. And that's the case for almost every single business case, right? So let's think about how business cases get created. Often people with lots of assumptions, without too much customer context, spend months and months and months creating a business case, financial projections, market analysis, and they go and sell it to the execs, the C-suite, the board. And then once they get the sign off, they come to the likes of, Transpire and go, hey, here's a business case, let's go and build this product. And then when we look at this business case, we go, you know what, it just does not make sense. Do you have any evidence to back this? No, we've done our market projection. Well, do you have any evidence? No, the board signed off. And in reality, what it is even though they may know their baby's ugly, they can't come to terms with it because they've spent the last 6 months going through the pain of creating such a business case. And that's a really dangerous thing to do. So when we talk to our clients, we often tell them, okay, well, you've got two choices. And I use a sort of a ship analogy leaving the dock. So you can either turn this ship before it's left the dock in the right direction and then sail. So you can go in a reasonably straight line with a bit of pivots. So you're going to get there quicker, but you might start slower because you're still sort of turning the ship. Or do what you want to do, which is let's go in your direction, even though if it's it's incorrect, and then use us to help course correct, which means it's going to take you longer, it's going to be more expensive, but all you've done is saved face. So that's not a really good practice. And, and again, going back to the Quickster backstory, it lasted less than 12 months. And, Reed, the CEO, quickly did a 180 turn and pulled that product off the shelf. So the problem with that is not only have they, driven their business case by assumptions or lack of, customer-centric context and research, they haven't helped define the vision, right? They haven't defined what a good product looks like. So one of the tools that I've come across probably over the last 12 months and I really, really like, and again, it's not necessarily a design tool, but it can be used by anybody, is thanks to AWS, we call it the working backwards process. So the way Amazon Web Services defines every one of their products or features before they even start building it is A, find out their customer, define it. That's the key goal. And then straight away, they write a press release as if the product's launched. And in that press release, they talk about who their customer is, what their pain points are, and their jobs they're trying to achieve. What's the value? What's the convenience? Is it trustworthy? What's the opportunity? How will they use it? What research have they done to back it? So they'll put some qualitative and quantitative data in that press release. What does the experience of the customer look like? And potentially some quotes from the customer. That's the first thing they do. And then the second thing they do after they've, iterated on that and signed off, they write the FAQ for the product. What are the questions the customers are asking around features, around pricing, and so forth. They work backwards towards user manuals, and then they get to actually building out the product. So what they're doing there is helping to set the vision before they've actually put a single line of code or a single line of pixel on a whiteboard. Helping to sort of really create that vision that's based on evidence, that's got the customers well defined, and helping to really define the value proposition before they invest their money into those features. So that's in a nutshell. So as a summary, pitfalls, assumptions, not being customer focused, and then all coming to a very poor written business case. Some of the tools you can think of is, mixed method research, so qualitative, quantitative research, hypothesis-driven development framework, value proposition canvas, I highly recommend, and the working backwards process. Now, let's get real. This doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a successful product. There's still many areas where your product can fail. Wrong choice of technology, wrong setup of the team and capability, being project driven as opposed to product driven. So having a closed mindset, you know, tight budget, a deadline that doesn't move. And that's just to name a few. But in reality, the goal is that majority of products fail, 75% of products fail is because they're not customer-centric, because the founders of the business have been living and breathing this space. They think they're experts, and they go through this very quick process of getting to a business plan and a business case. And then they're surprised why their product failed after it's gone to the market. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you, and I'll open it up to questions.
Amir, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let me see. We have a question here saying, will you share your materials after today's session?
Absolutely will.
That would be fantastic. And I'll also share the video from tonight, or the recording of the session as well. That Amazon press release, I think that's a fantastic idea. We're looking into that in our company at the moment for our innovation strategy. So you start at the end piece and write your press release.
Correct.
And work backwards.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Amir? Oh, here we go. How did you help the skincare brand find another way to solve their problem?
Really, really good question. I forgot to, I sort of skipped over that. So their challenge was not a technology problem. It was a business model problem. So think about it. They're a manufacturer. They're very passionate about their brand. But what they're in effect doing, grabbing their brand or product, handing it to some stranger who's getting paid by the hour during lunchtime to go and stack up some shelves, who in effect doesn't have any brand advocacy, doesn't understand the product, stack on the shelf, run out as quickly as possible. And then you've got some staff, often part-timers, who walk into the store and go, oh, a new product on the shelf. Oh, well, I don't know anything about this. So the business model is that they're trying to rely on third-party individuals to become their brand advocates. So one thing what we said to them after this 1 week is that we're not going to take your money. Here, have your down payment back. You don't need technology here. Why don't you go and hire 3 dedicated merchandise people, part-time in one suburb, so 3 stores, pay them, they're under your P&L, train them up, get them to stack the shelf, but then don't run out as quickly as possible. Take the opportunity to answer customer questions if they come, but if not, as you're walking out, make sure you then tell the staff at the store, hey, these new skincare products, this is good for curly hair, this is good for dry skin, and experiment on that for 6 months. And we told them to go. And it was really interesting because the MD of the company, first of all, thought, hang on a second, are you telling me you're not going to build a product for us? And he was very skeptical. But then there was so much trust built because, okay, I really appreciate it. You've given me my money back and you're telling me that I can solve this problem another way. Now, this is going back 6 years. Obviously, maybe policies around technology might have changed by then. But at that time, it was going to be an absolute waste of money. So it was a business model problem, not a technology problem.
Okay, we've loads of questions coming in for you here now. What's happened when you've told the client that their business or product isn't meeting a need? Oh yeah, you just answered that.
So yeah, the whole "your baby's ugly" is a really tricky conversation. And over the years, I've, without being very confrontational, we do the 5 whys. We do it very early, and then we change the conversation with the client to go, listen, you're going to engage us. Our goal is to increase your confidence and de-risk backed by evidence, right? Just using those commercially minded terminology and taxonomy is enough. As soon as you mention risk, everybody's ears prick up, right? So they go, well, yeah, our goal is to de-risk it for you. So that's, that's one of the things we do, the 5 whys. I had something else I was going to say. So what was the question again? Can you read that out, Clodagh?
Sorry.
That's right. Yes. You told your client their business product's wrong. And we give a few options. We go, okay, now you can either spend more money on us and we're going to start building a product for you and slowly but surely pivot, 45 degrees, 180 degrees, and you're going to get them much slower. Or you can take the time now, do some foundational stuff, some foundational research, turn the ship in the right direction and go. Now, what typically happens is the savvy clients go, you know what, good call. I'm going to go to my stakeholders and I go, hey, listen, geez, in fact, I'll look good because I've now brought in you guys. So I made the choice and you're telling me you need to course correct, right? But there are often those that go, you know what, I'm going to look like an absolute fool. We've got to press ahead. And we go, okay, well then we'll press ahead. And then, as you know, the product takes much longer, it's much more expensive, but they're sad face. So really, in terms of, I guess, ratio, unfortunately, I'd say majority of our clients, or in the past, not just at Transpire, tend to go with the don't tell me my baby's ugly because I'll look like a fool. So they'll end up spending more money in the end. But we've had a few who've gone, you know what, I appreciate it that you're being honest with me, trustworthy. Let's point in the right direction and proceed.
Okay. We've a few more here. Has there been a time when your research had biases which you didn't realize about until the product was launched? What would you have done differently?
Look, that's a really interesting one. So there's many reasons biases get sprinkled into research, right? Perfect example is sampling bias. So for people, for the non-researchers out there, sampling bias is when your sample or the participants that are recruited already have some bias attached to them. Maybe they're all, I don't know, lovers of Spotify, or maybe they all or left-handed, the things that you didn't consider when you're going through your recruitment process. So I guess the way to ensure you're not introducing any bias into research is, follow good research practices. Get people outside the team to review your discussion guides, your recruitment process, and get people within the client, people from the insights team, or statistics team, or the ethics team, to really look over, I guess, your research methodology, to make sure that you're trying to flesh out and comb out as many of your biases as possible. As for introducing bias while the research is taking place, look, we ensure that I train my team really well to be as, fair and straight and neutral as possible without leading the user. But look, research, right? You're already in an artificial environment. You're in a lab-based environment, especially for, COVID-19, people in their home. So there are already, external factors that are outside of our control. And what we do is we report on them to the client. We go, hey, FYI, these are the people we spoke with. These are the breakdown. This is the environment in which we, did the research. FYI, people all at their home, they might be a bit stressed because of COVID-19, they're homeschooling, so they're a bit stressed. So we just call it out and we say these may have an impact on the results. And so, the idea is you continue to do research and quantify it. So mixed method research, try and quantify some of those with either surveys or building prototypes and actually shipping it out and see what the results are through analytics. So there's multiple ways to try and fine tune, but you'll always have some biases, and the goal is to try and clean them out as you go.
Interesting points on bias there, things to note for future, definitely. There's one more question here. When you get a new client and start your own research into their customers, how much do you involve your client and which stakeholders in this research?
Yeah, really good question. So from years and years of research, we've learned that the biggest success of any project is when your customer comes along the journey, right? No matter what, they've paid you to do a job and they want to be hands off, but we know when we bring them along the journey through the decision-making process, and they're more likely to adopt our findings. So to that question, as much as possible, but we get them to be observers as opposed to drive the research, right? We're the third party, we're neutral. We often try and keep our clients anonymous, unless the product has a big fat logo of the client there, which means we can't. But as much as possible, I recommend that design practitioners and researchers bring their clients along the journey, get them to review and, almost like build the discussion guide, build the recruitment brief with you, have a skin in the game, listen to a couple of the recordings, as we know, which means then they, they really understand and empathize with the users. But, there's also a danger to that. One of the dangers is, your clients listen to one recording out of the 5 or the 20, and they run around to the stakeholders, oh, look, we need to change our product, just because that was the one anomaly or one user who happened to have a different point of view. Or sometimes when you sort of empower the clients too much, then they think they're human-centered design experts. And that itself becomes a bit dangerous. So it's making sure you bring them along the journey, but letting them know that you're the expert, that they're in good hands, and they can observe and be, fly on the wall as much as possible.
Okay. Good feedback there. I think that's it with the questions. There was a good few. I can't find. Oh, here's one more. Please mention my comment on people change above. Let's see. I must have missed.
Change must play a key role to ensure success. Comment from Vinay.
People change must play. People changing in the organization must play a key role to ensure success. Is it? Do you want to elaborate on that one, Vinay? Hang on, I shall unmute him. 2 seconds. Do you see it pop up on your screen?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I could have elaborated on that a bit more. So I think it goes to the heart of what you're just saying. I mean, I love your talk, and, you know, lessons learned was a question for me up front. So thank you for answering that. Yeah, so people change. What do I mean by that? You just gave a very good example, bringing them on the journey from what the impacts are, who's going to be impacted, what does it mean to them, how are we going to change their lives, and the whole business around communication, stakeholder management, training, post-go live support, blah, 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 adoption rates go up, right? That's what I mean by success. And I think all I'm saying is that with these products, we cannot forget about that person. Often we talk about product designers, UX designers, you know, the product manager, you know, the developers, but we must not forget change management. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good point. And Vinay, well, it sparked something else that I wanted to cover off. In case people don't know, there's a thing called the customer adoption curve, right? And it's worth looking into that. And the reason it's important is your customers go through a change, right? So customer adoption curve is this notion that you've got, imagine a bell curve, right? At the very start of any product, you've got what they call the innovators, right? When first the iPhone came out, it was the tech nerds, the people who were going to open up the phone and look inside it, right? They're not really customers, but they're early innovators. Then you've got, innovators, and then you've got early adopters. You know, these cohort are very different mindset. They have different values. They have different pains and gains. When your product is really successful, you've got product market fit, is when you get to that big fat bit of the adoption curve, which is you're targeting now the early majority and the late majority, right? They're about 75 to 80% of your market. And then you've got your laggards, which will never buy your products, right? One of the biggest failures that I've seen startups or even some enterprises make is they've got this new idea, they put it out in the market, and they see some customers buy it, their first 10, first 100, and they go, our product's got, we've got traction. But they're not the 75, 80% of your customers. They're the early innovators and the early adopters, right? They have a different need. What happens is often there's a chasm after that when the products fail. And the reason is they then don't go and pivot to go, okay, now how am I going to capture the early majority and late majority? These are different cohorts of customers with different needs. What they do is they'll just assume these personas, these innovators and early adopters are going to be the mass market, and they continue to build features for these targets. And everybody else goes, why would I want that? I don't need that. That's not for me. So it's really important as a tip that you understand that your customers go through a life cycle. And what you build and ship on day one will probably be very different to the target market that you will target on day 5 or day 7 or day 100. So I really, stress for people to go and, as product people, design people, go and look at, this notion of a customer adoption curve and understand the nuances and know where they are in their product journey to know who they're actually targeting. But thank you for that. That was a bit of a thought bubble that popped into my head.
Okay, well said. Well said. There's another comment here. Very good insights on adoption, Amir. That's well explained in Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore.
Correct.
Okay, let's have a look. Definitely. I think that's all the questions for this evening. So, Amir, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for that fantastic talk. That was fantastic. How many times can I say it?
Thanks, It was a pleasure.
No worries. I'm just going to wrap up in 2 minutes. I just want to tell you all, there's The next event will be in 6 to 8 weeks' time. Fingers crossed it might be actually in the Whisper offices, and we'll have free beer as well. And we've got some really good people coming up in the weeks to come. We have people from Usability Hub, one of the organisers of UX Australia conference, and a few people from Aconex as well. So thank you so much, guys, especially to yourself, Amir and Niamh, for the fantastic talks. And we'll see you soon.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Niamh, for your talk. Enjoy Ireland.
Cheers, guys. Bye.